In this video, we're taking a look at whether skill and playing smart beats gear score and spending money. We're gonna look to see whether you need a lot of gear score to go through Infernal Kitchen Abyssal dungeon, or can you do it by playing smart. So this week we had Infernal Kitchen for our Abyssal dungeon. I'm gonna show you a direct comparison between my ranger and my mage. Now my range is very geared up, but my mage isn't. So we're gonna have to see whether my mage can pull through this. Now obviously your team matters a lot when you go through this, but what I'm trying to achieve with this is to show you that if you play smart and know the mechanics, you can get through without actually being carried. So the first boss is not that big of a deal if you have enough gear score. As you can see from this clip, we finished him off in 11 seconds, which you don't really need to know mechanics for, do you? Just DPS him down. Now we have the second boss of the Infernal Kitchen. Now, as before, if you have enough gear score, all you have to do is simply focus him down and make sure you can skip the cutscene so that you can do more damage. The only thing that you need to be wary about are the bombs that he spawns. But as long as everybody knows what they're doing, and in this case they do, all you have to do is just move from one side to the other with everybody else. As I was saying earlier, the priest goes in first so he can take the cutscene, and then we all go in so he can do as much damage while he sits in the cutscene. During this time, it's ideal to use Mark and Flashbang Arrow in order to take the boss down as quickly as possible. Just make sure you get in this position before he blows the horn and the whelps start coming in. These whelps are one hit for everybody, so make sure that when you dodge the bombs, you don't go into the whelp's path. 36 seconds for this boss is not that bad at all. Now for the last boss, Ramsey, you have to make sure you stop hitting him at 60% and wait for him to do the DPS check, otherwise you're gonna have a hard time because he gets a big damage decrease buff. As long as you pay attention and don't stand still when he jumps on you, you should be fine. You'll see that in this clip, we literally wait until he's 60% and does the DPS check before we dump everything that we have on him. Once he shouts, "Get out of my kitchen," everybody gets in place to do the DPS. So make sure you save up skills like Mark or Flashbang Arrow for this particular stage. Once he says something about meatballs, everybody's already ready. All that's left is just to DPS him down and get the chest. The key here is to do as much damage after the DPS check because he gets staggered afterwards. And that's how you run Infernal Kitchen if you have OP gear and a good team. So let's have a look at what kind of gear my ranger uses to finish Infernal Kitchens in roughly 6 minutes. I'll simply go through this as quickly as I can because most of this gear you guys can see in my previous videos. Since the update, I haven't really changed much other than my secondary weapon. It's just that I haven't been very lucky getting any drops from Infernal Kitchen. At least not for rangers. Now for stats, I'm using Wolf, so that means most of my stats are really boosted by it. But I'll show you my blessing right after this. My skills are not that high as you can see, but they do the job. Now for blessings, I'm using 2 blessings for Infernal Kitchens. I'm using my Mark of the Wolf, which you can see it's pretty leveled up into legendary. And then I'm using my Lionheart because it helps everybody in my team to do tons of damage. Particularly Threat of the Beast needs to be maxed. Alright, now for the main part. As you saw from before, running Infernal Kitchen with good gear and a good team isn't that much of an issue. But let's see how that works out if you play a character like my mage that's only level 35 and doesn't have really that good gear. The most important part is to know when to use your potions. As a matter of fact, from this clip, we only did it in a 4-man team because the 5th one just disconnected before we started the boss. So we still managed to get through it, even though some of us died a couple times. But the point of the matter is that all 4 of us knew what to do, and that made the boss skill much more easy. Another important part for this boss is to get him out of the smoke phase as quickly as possible, because if people don't have great gear like my mage does, he damages you a lot with his smoke. So if you hit him 3 times when he jumps around, you can get through it real quickly. The shield that you get from the cages only lasts you a little while, so make sure you get through the smoke phase as quick as possible, otherwise you keep taking damage from him. I also made a point of not using any panaceas or any elixirs during this run, because I wanted to showcase that my mage, even though he has low gear, he still can put up quite a bit of DPS. And as long as you're paying attention, you should be okay. The one thing you always need to keep in mind for this boss is to not get hit by his attack. If you do get hit, he puts a curse on you, and that simply makes your job very hard to stay alive, especially if you have low gear. Now these trash mobs that you see right now are pretty hard hitting, so make sure you avoid as many attacks from them as you can. So we make our way to the second boss, and by now the 5th player has showed up. And thankfully he's a priest, so it means that he's gonna try to keep us alive as much as he can. The thing is, he clearly doesn't really understand how to do the second boss and how to get in, so we have to direct him and explain to him what to do. Knowing how to do this second boss is very important, because if somebody doesn't stay on the same side as everybody else during the bombing phase, that means everybody can possibly get hit by the bombs and die. Now at this point I want you guys to try and guess how much gear score or what kind of a blessing or what kind of skills my mage uses. Make sure you post a comment now in the comments down below and then see if you were right or wrong. I'm really curious to know how accurately you guys can guess it. Now let's get back into the dungeon. As I was mentioning before, knowing how to do this is very important because of the bomb phase. Again, just before the cutscene you have to be in place, and then soon after he spawns the bombs. Now you'll be able to see that some of the players here don't really understand how to do it properly, or they just feel too flustered to pay attention, but we managed to do it somehow. Again, slowly, steadily, and keeping composed makes this boss an easy job. Unlike the previous run on my ranger, you can see that we clearly don't do as much damage, and we didn't really expect to do that much anyway. But everybody started pitching in and everybody tried their best, and eventually we pulled through. Again, this can easily go very wrong if somebody sits on the wrong side of the boss when he does the bombs. There's very little room for maneuver, and you have to keep an eye out for the whelps so you don't sit in their path. You'll see now how close they were to me when I was hitting them, but again, you have to keep composed and hope for the best. We managed to pull through and kill him in 2 minutes and 40 seconds, which, when you think about it, we only took 35 seconds to kill him on my ranger. So, let's move on and finish the dungeon by killing the last boss, Ramsey. After you kill all these little ads just before Ramsey, you need to make sure everybody's ready to start hitting him, because again, you only have a small window of opportunity to do damage. So try not to rush in and hit him before everybody's ready. In this clip, you'll see that we had to wait for somebody to come back in because he died and went to the pyre. So just like before, you have to save up on your hard hitting skills until he does his DPS check or he says get out of my kitchen. You have to remember that when he jumps on people, he takes very little damage. That's why you have to save up everything until he says get out of my kitchen or he does the DPS check. If you haven't done it by now, make sure you leave a comment down below and guess what kind of gear score I have or what kind of blessing or skills I'm using. And after you've seen the end of the video where I show what kind of gear and everything I'm using, you can edit your comment and see how close you were to the truth. So we start off on Ramsey, but as you can see, we don't really do as much damage as my ranger team did. In fact, there's a few people even dying because they're not paying attention. So right after the meatballs, he's gonna do the DPS check, but because I was too focused on doing damage, I wasn't really paying attention at the fire, so I ended up dying. But luckily somebody picked me up straight away and I didn't miss out much. At this point, again, we're just waiting for him to say get out of my kitchen until we unleash everything. Up until then, just make sure you dodge when he starts jumping on people. But that means it also gives people a good opportunity to be able to pick everybody up in case they die. You have to keep in mind that you can only use one scroll in the Abyssal dungeons, and then if you do use it, you have to stop by the soul pyre to replenish that. And with that, we finished the dungeon. As you can tell, it's obviously much more difficult to finish it if you don't have a great team or great gear score. But honestly, it's still doable. You can still farm these to get your S grades. As long as you keep composed and actually invest a little bit in your character, you should be good. We finished Ramsey off in just 4 minutes and 31 seconds, which is not really that bad considering the group and the gear that we have. Pick up your chest and hopefully you would have gotten an S grade. And finishing Infernal Kitchen at just under 20 minutes is pretty decent. Now, let's have a look at what kind of setup I'm using. Frost Spike 16 and Arcane Flash 18 are my main damage dealing skills. Arcane Lightning is 5 and Blink is 5 too, but I don't focus too much on them. Now, I'm using the Valor Blessing, and as you can tell, they're not really that much leveled. I have Frost Circulation at 6, Frozen Solid at 10, Ice Breaking at 6, and Arcane Penetration at 13. I'm using Amplify and Time Distortion because I really need them to rack up my DPS. Combat Casting is only level 26. Now, as you can see from my gear, the only decent item is my weapon, but everything else is just whatever I could find laying around in my stash. The pants are even something that I got from a quest just because I didn't have anything else that was better. But that just goes to show the importance of having a Mythic 5 weapon. And with that, we conclude our video for today. Make sure you edit your comment and let me know how close of a guess you had. Thank you very much for watching, and take care.